So why don't we start by just maybe giving a brief story of how you got connected with National Geographic and a little bit about your background.
Yes. So I am a professor at Columbia Business School, and I study stress and resilience. And I got connected to National Geographic because when they were thinking about Limitless, they were reaching out to experts to better understand what stress is, the situations that engender stress, how you stress somebody out. And I was having conversations with them about that because of my research. And eventually I learned that a little bit more about the series, and I was asked to be Chris's stress coach, and I agreed. So it was my research background and expertise that led to me being a part of this production.
Right, and then one of the things that you really stuck out with me is I with a bunch of other journalists did the climb at Hudson Yards, and you gave us a little pep talk before we all endeavored on climbing up a skyscraper basically, and you did this exercise of 4 squares on a box, and I was wondering if you could maybe explain what that is.
So what I shared with you was box breathing. And what happens when we're stressed is that our body prepares for action, our heart rate increases. And so what we want to do is to reduce our heart rate so that we can kind of be in a state where we're ready for action, but not too ready for action. So box breathing is a simple technique where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, then hold it for 4 seconds. So it's a really measured way of forcing yourself to breathe when you experience your heart rate increasing as a result of an impending stressor.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just thinking about myself, traffic stresses me out, math homework stressed me out. What's the most common stressors in people's lives? And does box breathing, is that sort of a catch-all for them, or do you recommend other techniques for specific types of stress?
So the types of situations that stress people out are when there's some type of evaluation. You said math, like you're about to take a math test. There's evaluation. You want to perform well, and there's some type of goal you're trying to achieve, and somebody's like kind of watching, right? Like you care about your teacher. If you're about to give a speech, there's an audience, you want to do well, like all that. So those are the types of situations that can stress people out. And so if you're in the middle or about to do a math test, and you feel your heart rate increasing, it's great to breathe, because then you're less focused on the threat and your mind goes more into a zone where it's not just in oh my gosh, I'm going to do badly. Oh my gosh, I'm going to do badly. Instead, it's more in an approach related. It can be in a more of approach related orientation. By the way, don't get this wrong. I am not saying that the moment you breathe, you're going to think everything is great.
Right.
What happens is your breathing allows you to at least notice your stress and down regulate physiologically. And then that's when you need your psychology to tell you, I'm telling myself I'm going to fail. No, I can tell myself I'm ready. I'm prepared. I know this. I've done this a million times. That type of thing. So depending on the stressor, you might need to recruit different resources. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that brings us to you working with Chris Hemsworth, obviously someone who's very used to being in the spotlight and a bunch of people evaluating him. But there's this extra layer of he's going to be on Disney Plus with a bunch of people watching, and then B, he is scaling a huge building in Sydney. So I don't know, maybe just were you able to gauge how stressed he was, and if one performance versus just being on top of a tall building was stressing him out more than the other? And I guess how did you approach that and prepare him for the task?
Yeah, so different types of stressors have a different effect on us. So you have to kind of think about, okay, yes, he's being watched all the time. And one of the things he mentions is how he used to get so nervous and still does get nervous before auditions and things like that. And has had to remind himself, okay, I've got this. Let me breathe. I've, done this before. I am well prepared. So he's had to engage in positive self-talk to be able to get through those situations. Same thing when you're up tall, on a 900 feet above the ground. You have to, your mind might want to say, like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
This is the dumbest thing you could do ever. Who does this? But instead telling yourself, oh, I have what it takes. I'm being courageous. I'm up for a challenge. So you might need to do different things or tell yourself different things depending on the stressor, but it's still stressful. So it's up to a person to understand what they might need in light of a given stressor.
So
the different things.
So on the flip side, there are tons of things that are very unhelpful with stress. When people are like, don't look down, or like, I personally hate, like, just imagine everyone in their underwear. Like, that makes it so much worse. I'd be way more stressed. So in your experience, what are some of the worst pieces of advice or prep when you're trying to de-stress someone?
The worst is like, don't be stressed. What in the heck? I told you I'm stressed. It's like, I'm just supposed to don't be stressed. It's like when a kid hurts their knee and you're like, and it's scraped and you're like, don't cry. They should cry. They're bleeding. Yeah. So when somebody tells you like to deny the stress, or, that's not going to help. Or sometimes people will tell you to avoid it. Like, if you have a sick parent who's dealing with a chronic disease, you can't avoid that. You can't run away from it. You're dealing with it. So those are examples of things people say that we need to stop saying. Instead, we need to say, how are you feeling? What do you need? How can I be helpful? What, that type of thing. Not, you're not stressed. Yes, I am.
Yeah. And you just got to embrace it sometimes.
Yes, embrace it and remind them that not all stress is bad.
Right.
And ask them to think about, well, what are some of the times where you have dealt with stress and you've risen to the occasion? That's what people need to be reminded of, not to run away or avoid it or like, don't be stressed about it. It's stressing you out.
Yeah. So there's really a gold mine of really great advice here. What did you see Chris take away and, maybe apply to, future projects of his?
I think the mindfulness meditation was really helpful. Partially because we get so much stimuli every moment of the day. And you can imagine how on he is all the time. You can't walk anywhere without people. And so being able to just be present with yourself in a non-judgmental way, I know is a tool that he has continued to use and used a little bit even before the episode, but that helped reinforce the importance of this. I think the idea of breathing before something, when you do a lot of physical things, the anticipation of doing them can be really big. So just being able to breathe through something, I think, is another huge tool that I believe and hope that he has continued to apply in his journey.
Yeah, so you mentioned mindfulness and meditation as a way to de-stress you, but I know a lot of creatives like doing that because it opens up, creative pathways. I do, like Paul McCartney, David Lynch are pretty strict adherents to transcendental meditation. I know a bunch of other people are. So I don't know, do you feel that Chris maybe gained, something in his acting and creativity, not just, in his personal life from being mindful?
Look, what I cannot speak directly to what Chris has gained, but I can speak broadly to what I know people generally gain. When your mind is still, you have this space to be more creative. You have this space for new connections to be made between things. You've made a room and got rid of noise. And so as a result, my presumption would be that a practice like mindfulness opens up space in your mind to make connections between different things, which is kind of the underpinning of creativity.
Right. So I've seen the very first episode of that building in Sydney. Was there anything that really freaked Chris out the most throughout the entire series that maybe was surprising, that you think, oh, this is a little less scary, but really he was like, no, I need help?
I feel like, one of the first tests was doing the beam walk in virtual reality. And just like watching his heart rate increase dramatically at the thought of taking a step on a beam that you know is fake just makes you say, well, what's it going to be when he is 900 feet above ground? Will he, be able to take that one step to feel okay with it? And again, I saw it replicated when he was on, his heart rate went up. But then he was like, I'm going to breathe. I'm breathing. And I was reminding him to breathe. And I feel like that really helped and that really worked. I mean, he mentioned earlier that like he doesn't love heights. So it speaks volumes to be able to use some of these more simple techniques in moments that are stressful on a variety of dimensions.
So just going back, you had mentioned that I had first met you when we had this media day where we all went up in Hudson Yards, and there's an interesting phenomenon that almost everyone experienced. There's two things we did. We leaned forward to see the off the building and we're suspended, and then we leaned backwards, which was like the cool end of the whole thing. We got a great photo, but for almost everyone, leaning forwards was so much harder and more terrifying. We're like, oh yeah, I'll just lean backwards, and So I don't know if you have any comments on why that might be, or like psychological things that are going on when we're faced with heights.
Well, heights, and remember, our stress system is designed to help us fight or flee a stressful situation or a life-threatening situation. So when you are leaning forward, your mind is saying, this is life-threatening. You are going to die. That's what's happening. And your body is saying like, whoa, you're going to die. It's not processing your harness, your all that. Now, when you lean back, you don't have as much, you're not seeing that depth idea is not evident as when you're seeing it. And so that helps account for the differential in some ways, because you lean back first, right? And then you lean forward. So that's a piece of it. It's almost like you did a switch, like your body's telling you, oh, this is okay. But then when you look down, your mind is like, oh, no, it's not. And so one of the things I kept on telling people was, when you feel that, oh my gosh, I'm going to die, thank yourself for that, because it's your body and your mind protecting you. Like, what if you, I know that sounds so touchy, but I'm like, thank you for reminding me. Thank you for that signal. Now, how can I tell myself that signal is fake? Yeah.
And we've made it all these years, both of us, because of that,
Exactly. Like, thank you. We have made it. I appreciate you telling me this, but I'm okay now. I've got this. So it's a constant overriding.
And then the last question I have for you is, were you stressed out at all when meeting with Chris and helping him out? And if so, how did you prepare yourself?
Yeah, so I was, when I'm putting him through the stuff, I was like, is he okay? Is he going to do it? I hope he's going to be all right. Like, even though I knew he would be. So that just speaks to the fact that like our stress is also contagious. So I had to tell myself, he's got this. You're all right. He's going to be fine. Breathe through it. So it was a lot of that, just kind of like, I don't know if you have kids, or when you have a kid and they're like, do gymnastics and they're on the balance beam. You are stressed, like, oh my gosh, are they going to make it? You have to control yourself to help others. So in some ways, my experience was one of learning how to be a good coach, guide, and support system for somebody else, which also means first dealing with me.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I don't have kids, but I know my mom probably has a very bad case of contagious stress for me.
There you go. Some of our lives are about undoing that. So that's why I apply these techniques to undo the many things I've learned and watched from my amazing parents who didn't have as many resources as we do now to address some of our stressors.
Great. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you, and excited for everyone to see you and Chris, do some death-defying stunts. Well, not really, getting over some perceived death-defying stunts.
Well, it was good to see you again, and thanks for the time too.
Yeah, likewise. All right. Take care. Bye bye.